Hey there and welcome back to the podcast. Here we are on episode number 69. And today we're going to take a look at 5 questions that can promote inner healing. Because we all have stuff that we're dealing with, right? You know, we pick up baggage throughout our life, and many of these things heal naturally over time, but others can stick. They can stay with us and get in the road of our happiness, our pursuits of the things that we want from life. So these questions are designed to help you look at these problematic areas of your life from a different and more powerful perspective, and that then can stimulate inner healing. So let's do this, grab a cuppa or whatever you do when you're listening to your podcasts, and let's get started. Hey there and welcome to the Stress Less Living podcast. My name is Stephen Burns and I've been a practicing coach, trainer and hypnotherapist for 25 years. Each week I'll share easily digestible bite-sized ideas that you can immediately put into practice so that you can live a more harmonious and balanced life. Because life is challenging, but whatever we encounter, we always have a choice. We can take the easy routes or the hard routes, the low stress way or the high stress way. Well, the Stress Less Living podcast is about always looking for the easy routes in life, the low stress ways to accomplish your goals, get more of what you want, and ultimately live a happy and more effortless life. So if you're looking for the perfect antidote for the chaos of modern life, my friend, you are absolutely in the right place. So like I said, we're going to take a look at 5 questions that can promote inner healing. Before I go through the questions though, I just want to make an important point. When you're asking these questions of yourself, you don't want to consider them logically. You're not looking for an intellectual answer here. The questions are designed to steer your imagination to a specific place. So you want to ask them and then allow them to percolate, let them guide your imagination, and then notice what answers naturally arise from within as a result. So this is really important. A lot of people see healing as a cognitive process where you try to think or logic yourself into feeling different. But this rarely ever works. To create real change, it has to happen at a deeper level. You have to create some kind of perspective shift, and it has to be connected with your feelings. Einstein once said that you can't solve a problem with the same level of thinking that was used to create it. You have to elevate your thinking, and that's what these questions are designed to do. So the key is to ask the questions, allow them to guide your imagination naturally, and then sense the answers. That way, the answers will be true, and this will promote healing at a deep level. So let's get going. Question number 1. If you were to look back through older and wiser eyes, what would you learn that would allow you to let this go and move on? So this is an amazing question that can help you heal from past baggage. Or if you've had some kind of bad experience and you're struggling to let go of it, you keep thinking about it. So the reason this question works so well is because whenever we have a bad experience, because emotions are running so high, our brain can jump to false conclusions, and these conclusions can get stuck and stay with us. That's why we think about them all the time, and that's why they can affect our feelings. At the end of the day, our brain's prime directive is to keep us safe. So if it senses a threat or a potential threat, then it will make a quick assessment and form a conclusion to get us back to safety as quick as we possibly can. And also it does this to make sense out of the situation too. And this assessment is often wildly wrong. In fact, research has shown time and time again that when emotions are running high, especially negative emotions, we stop thinking clearly. You open yourself up to creating generalizations about yourself, the situation, and life that are not healthy or even accurate. So when you ask this question of yourself, it gets you to look onto the situation that you're having trouble with from a wiser, more resourceful, and more balanced perspective. It's much cleaner. And when you do this, what happens is you often suddenly get an insight that gives you a release and allows you to let it go and move on. You're essentially reassessing the event from a more wiser and resourceful place. And this can give you such an amazing perspective shift that you can let go of all of that trapped emotion and then finally move on. So that's question number 1. Question number 2, what's amazing about this? So I got this one from a Tony Robbins seminar. Now, I don't always agree with Tony's approach, but he does ask some great questions. So whenever something bad happens to us, or we find ourselves in a bit of a funk, a bit of a spot, usually what our brain does is it jumps to the worst conclusion and it runs with that. And it's actually designed to do that as well. So there's something called the negative bias, which is the evolutionary tendency that causes us to magnify potential threats in our mind. As I said a moment ago, our brain's prime directive is to keep us safe. So if it senses a threat, it tends to make that threat larger, bigger, and brighter in our minds to make us aware of it. So the last thing we're thinking about when something bad happens is that it could actually have a silver lining. There could be some kind of positive byproduct that comes from all of this. So when you ask the question, what's amazing about this? It kind of like just flips the whole thing around and you start to consider what that positive byproduct could be. And look, every negative event that happens will bring emotional turbulence. Of course it will. But it will also create some good things too. It might take a while to see those good things, but they will be there. When a storm hits, it often washes perils up on the shore. But we can be so fixated on the bad that we don't notice the good stuff. We can be temporarily blinded to it. So by asking the question, what's amazing about this? You shift your attention to a more positive space and you start to improve the relationship you have with that event. So I remember about 18 years ago, I finished a long-term relationship and there was a lot of financial and emotional heartache involved. And I was really struggling with it for a long time. But then I asked that question, what's amazing about this? And all of a sudden, I realised, wow, I've got so many new opportunities. I can live a completely different lifestyle. I can relocate. I can do what I want. And that is super exciting. And this completely changed my perspective on it. So if you're in a difficult spot, take some time, first of all, to disconnect, take a bit of a breather, and then ask yourself that question, what's amazing about this? You'll be pleasantly surprised by what comes to mind. So that's question 2. Question number 3, if you were to go to the very end of your life and look back, does this really matter? So again, this is a great one if you find yourself in a tough spot. So something bad has happened and you're freaking out about it. But you can also use this for any event that's happened in the past that's still bothering you. So I call this the end of life strategy, and it just puts things into this beautiful perspective. As I mentioned earlier, we can often catastrophize and magnify things inside our mind. It's the negative bias in action. And it can end up taking so much space inside our minds that we struggle to keep perspective and we become all consumed by it. But when you pan the camera back and consider the situation or whatever it is that you're going through over a longer period of time, over the course of your entire life, it's just a mere blip. It's a pebble on the landscape of your life. So I remember when I was growing up, I used to live quite close to a retirement home. And I used to talk to the old timers every now and again. They all had a story. They were very entertaining as well. There was some real characters. And one of the questions that I asked each of them was, when they look across their entire life, did they have any regrets? And interestingly, even though they all had their own story and digression that they had, they eventually all pretty much said the same thing. They said that they didn't have any regrets for the things that they had done, but they did have regrets for the things that they hadn't done. In fact, one old lady said to me, "Son, I've spent too much time on stupid shit." And this was a common theme that came from them. They kept on saying that they worried about too much back then, and the things that they worried about now that they look back from an older age, it just seems silly, if you think about it, because time is finite and we have to make the most of it. And I love this example because it just shows that time can be such a powerful tool for clarifying what's important to you and also what's not important, what's not worth worrying about. Not getting as much out of life as you want to. Maybe you feel like something is missing and you want to make a change. Or perhaps you're at a turning point and you want to make sure that the next chapter of your life is amazing. Or maybe you just want to take your life, your work, or your business to the next level. If any of those resonate, then you may be great for Next Level Coaching. It's a one-to-one program that consists of a series of one-to-one sessions that are designed to help you take your life to new heights. I use a powerful blend of NLP, hypnosis, and traditional coaching to help you smash past your blocks and barriers so that you can really put the pedal to the metal and move forward in your life. So if you'd like some more information, click the link in the show notes and request your free 20-minute Zoom call. During that call, we'll spend some time figuring out where you are and then start to create an exciting plan for your future. When you reach the end of your life, you will look back on some of the things that you worried and fretted about and go, why did I bother about that? It seems so small now. Why did I waste so much time on things that didn't really matter? On the grand scheme of things, they were just a blip and they actually weren't really that important. So this question allows you to get that perspective now, or at least a little bit of it. It helps you put things into perspective without having to wait until you're on your rocking chair on your front porch, old and wrinkly. So that's question number 3. If you were to imagine going to the very end of your life and then look back from there, does this really matter? A great question if you find yourself in a tough spot. Question number 4, and this is quite similar to the last one, but we're going at it from a slightly different angle, and that is, when you think about your problem from the perspective of the entire universe, how does it change the way you think and feel about it? Again, an amazing question. So this, as it was with the last one, is one of these questions that helps you pan the camera back and put things into perspective. And again, it works because our brain tends to magnify negative events as per the negative bias. So there's an amazing video that illustrates this that I saw a while back. It absolutely blew my mind. I'll include a link to it in the show notes if you want to check it out. So it illustrates just how vast the universe is and how small we and our problems are in comparison. So it starts off showing you the Earth, and this looks pretty big. Then it compares the Earth to the size of Jupiter, which is many times the size of the Earth. Then it compares Jupiter with a star called Tiade 1, I don't know if I've got my pronunciation right, but anyway, which is double the size of Jupiter. Then it moves on to another star called Proxima Centauri, which is double the size of that previous star. And then it really amps this up by moving on to the size of the Sun, and this is many times larger than Proxima Centauri. And then it keeps doing this until eventually it gets to a star that makes the Sun look literally like a pebble. It's an amazing video, you really want to check it out, and it beautifully illustrates just how small we are. Now, when I first watched this video, it did make me feel a little bit insignificant, but it also put my problems so much into perspective. It shrank them down so small that they no longer felt overwhelming. In fact, they felt like nothing. Now, a word of warning, I'm not suggesting that you do this to avoid your problems and hope that they go away. Some things do, of course, need to be addressed head on. You need to do something about them. But what it will do is it will help you reduce the emotional impact of them. They won't knock you off balance. They won't have the same emotional intensity, and you'll be able to think about the situation much more objectively. So that's question number 4. When you think about your problem from the perspective of the entire universe, how does it change the way you think and feel about it? How small does it feel? And the last question is, who do you know that has a completely different perspective on this? So this is a great one if you ever find yourself stuck and you don't know how to get out of a situation, or maybe you're even stuck in a feeling and you want to get a different alternative. You want to see it from a different perspective. So when we're struggling with a problem, we often get stuck seeing it from our own perspective. Usually we then mix in all sorts of stuff, emotion, past baggage, limiting beliefs, values, biases and prejudices, you name it, and that affects how we feel about the situation. And a lot of the time the reason why we can't move forward is because we are so locked in our own worldview And we need to take a step away and get out of our own way. We need to view the situation from somebody else's perspective. This, by the way, is why coaching is so powerful, because they help you see it from a different perspective. But anyway, that's a different topic. But that's what this question does really well. So to give you an example, a number of years ago, I did a lot of work with people who had social anxiety. So I did a thing called a social confidence boot camp. So I would see them as, do some therapy and some coaching with them. So I would do one-to-one work. Then I also had some online stuff that they worked through. And then I actually went out with them socially to various different groups and gave them some tips as well. It was amazing. It was so much fun. But one of the questions I used to ask them a lot is, who do you know that has a completely different perspective on this? Who do you know that is actually confident socially, that's not anxious, that's not shy, that feels completely comfortable and completely confident around people? And I would then follow this question up by saying, okay, so once I got an answer from it, of course, I would say, okay, so what would it be like if you were to step into that person's shoes, that person who is completely fine talking to people, they're not afraid, they feel fully confident. If you were to step into their shoes and see the world through their eyes, what would it be like? Such powerful questions. And they helped them get a sense of what it would be like if they were actually confident. Now, I want to just make a point here, just to clarify something. I'm not asking these questions to encourage people to be someone else or anything like that. It's just a psychological technique to help people temporarily bypass their neuroses and start to tap into new and powerful resources. In fact, I wouldn't even say they're new resources. I believe that as human beings, we have a base level of confidence. So it's more about just bypassing their neuroses so that they can tap into something that's already there. And this is a great starting point to any healing journey. So when you think about the situation that you're struggling with, I'm assuming that you're going through something right now, you might not be. You want to ask yourself first, who do I know that has a completely different perspective on this? A much more enriched way of looking and approaching it. And then from there, you can take it even further. You can hook onto that answer and say, okay, so what would it be like if I were to step into that person's shoes and see the situation from that place and notice how that shifts things for you? So that is us. That's 5 great questions that promote inner healing. There are many more I could have included. Maybe I'll do a part 2 if you like this, let me know. So let's review. Question number 1. If you were to look back through older and wiser eyes, what would you learn that would allow you to let this go and move on? Great question that can help you heal from past baggage. Question number 2. What's amazing about this? So often when we're in a bad spot or in a bit of a funk, then we get focused in on the details, the negative aspects of the event, and we can magnify them inside our minds, and we struggle to think of any positive alternatives or any positive consequences. So when you ask this question, it almost like breaks things a little bit, it flips it on its head, and you start to notice some potential positive byproducts that could be related to this event. Question number 3, if you were to go to the very end of your life and look back, does this really matter? Great for creating a perspective shift. Again, we can often magnify negative events, but when you look at that event over the course of your entire life, it just makes it seem a little bit small, a little bit insignificant. Question number 4, very similar tact, but we're going at it in a slightly different way. When you think about your problem from the perspective of the entire universe, how does it change the way you feel about it? Incredible for just shrinking problems down. It's not about avoiding them. It's about being able to shrink them down so they no longer have this emotional impact on you. You can then think clearly and start to do something about them. And finally, question number 5, who do you know that has a completely different perspective on this? And when you get an answer, you can follow that up by saying, okay, so what would it be like if you were to step into that person and look at the situation from this new and more enriched perspective? Amazing, powerful questions. And again, I just want to reiterate that you're not asking these questions in a logical manner. You want to consider them in your imagination, allow them to affect you, and see what answer naturally comes from within. You want to sense the answer rather than try to think and analyse it. So that is us for another episode. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, I would love it if you could subscribe or follow wherever you listen to your podcasts. And of course, if you're feeling especially generous, if you could leave me a glowing review, I'm sure it will be glowing. It really does help get the word out. So thank you once again for listening to this episode. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one.